Hello, and welcome to another episode of Ask Adam Live. Ask is the acronym for Always Seek Knowledge. I hope that this episode and others that have been published have, encouraged you to seek knowledge, to understand a little bit more about yourself, to understand about others, and to understand about life, whether it's something you're truly passionate in or just something you enjoy doing. Certainly, you should always seek a little bit more of what that's about. And my hope is through each one of these episodes, which have a lot to do with life and with business, that you are taking something away from it and doing some of your own investigation to find out a little bit more. And if you're not able to find, certainly pair with me and let's find together. I know it's out there and let's learn more. Welcome to today's episode, where we are business scaling secrets, grow without burnout. Scaling doesn't mean more. It means doing what matters. And quite frankly, doing it better, doing it more efficient. I remember it once said, actually, I've heard it several times, and so the author has kind of gotten sidestepped, but you don't rise to your success, you fall to your systems. So what you've set up, what you have, your automation, if you will, is kind of where you're going to land. And that's okay. That is a place to be. But if those systems and processes are put in place and they're operating effectively and efficiently, well, now you're doing it better. And if you're constantly monitoring how to improve that, learning more about your business, and part of your scaling up is building a better system. Do you know that building a business to become a prisoner to it? Well, that's not really what we all meant to do, was it? Growth should give you freedom, not fatigue. Most entrepreneurs think scaling means hustle, expansion, endless efforts. But real growth, like I said, it's about systems, focus, and sustainable pace, if you will. Those that grow too fast can get burned out. And that, well, kind of puts you on that endless cycle, right? I remember when I was building the business of real estate, for instance, that I did start out slow and it was kind of antiquated and quite frankly clunky. But once I had that system in place of constantly contacting my clients, staying up to date, giving them the important information that was required, not only to acquire that client, if they just had a general conversation and they weren't quite committed, I was still reaching out to them to understand what it was they were looking for because I was constantly walking in and out of homes that, well, could have been their perfect fit. And I shared with them often. But setting up these systems where people were allowing me to kind of put them in a place in my business, as well as the process of the transaction, which required several emails and conversations and stuff going back and forth, text messages, and as things are getting modern. Some of that was automation, other was based on a needed response based on a particular event that happened. I won't say outside of the norm, but sometimes it just happened at different times. So you can't set up a system to necessarily do that. You can now, for sure. But it was that being in contact pre-sale, during the sale, and even after the sale. Some of those gentle touches just to say, hey, hope you enjoyed the home. Even to the step of if I was in the neighborhood and I noticed that they were outside, I'd stop by. Hey, how's the home going? I wasn't kind of a one and done person where that sale was the only one I was looking forward to. It was building that relationship where in a year or two they would call me with a friend or a family or someone they socially congregated with that sparked such an interest, and because they had such a seamless experience themselves with the transaction, that, well, they thought their friend deserved the same thing and shared them with me. So part of these systems and processes is basically building the business. And of course, the more clients you have, or the more individuals that are sort of in this touch point pipeline, well, that's, a lot more tentacles, I guess, if you will, that are connecting in different directions, and you're not just working one thing. And it gets a little taxing, if you will, that you've got multiple things going on. But that's where, gosh, man, the beauty of automation now is unbelievable. And I don't get me wrong, I had some then, but certainly not to the scale of something now. And just to be able to do it at such a mass scale kind of would have been a game changer for sure. At least to scale the business up the next level. And maybe you're in this position where your business, you have about 100 clients, and you're thinking, boy, 500 could be kind of daunting. It could be a lot of people. But when you set up that system and process with a level of automation, as well as some gentle reminders on the personal level, like don't forget to take a note of maybe somebody's birthday or an anniversary, or even the transactional anniversary, just to remind them, hey, I didn't forget what we did. Now, I'm sure you have, because we all live busy lives. But shh, the client or customer doesn't necessarily know that. And they live busy lives too. And the fact that you took time to just remind them of something, and even if, again, I don't want to make this sound little to the client or customer, but think about it this way. You did take time to record this and set it up into your system. So it's not like you didn't think about it. So it's not wrong. I know many people are like, well, if it's automation, it's not from the heart. Well, you did put it in the system. I think that's from the heart. So let's be honest here. You did take time to put something into a system knowing you're going to be too busy, and you didn't want to miss the opportunity to remind them of this great event that you both share. So I promise in this episode that we're going to break down how to scale your business with clarity, delegation, and energy protection. So you'll grow with momentum, not with misery. The difference between growing and scaling: growing is more inputs. Scaling is more impact with less input. See, again, going back to maybe you scale it up to 500, but you could honestly float in that 500 range with more impact, creating a more satisfied customer and client. See the difference? So yeah, at first, growth can seem like more input, so it's contradictory, but scaling is more impact to those clients and customers. So you may find that with that 500 that we mentioned earlier, you're actually enjoying it closer to the 100 because of automation and systems and processes. So it is getting more without less. Scaling your business without scaling your nervous system, well, that's going to equal burnout. Build routines, rituals, and some recovery into your calendar. I teach this continuously in the neuroencoding classes and teachings that I share. Is you have to scale up as well. You have to build up. So as you're building your business, remember, you got to take a few moments to build up yourself. You got to strengthen your muscle, not only your company's muscle. Because as the company's bigger, or just requiring a little bit more of you, well, they're going to want the good part of you, not the grumpy, I'm tired, I'm frustrated, things are not going well you. And that can, well, lead to poor decisions, quite frankly. And you don't want to do that when you're scaling your business. In fact, scaling your business should almost be an enjoyable thing. So get yourself in that high energy state as I share in those other classes that I do, that I conduct, is get your energy up. You want to be up there for your business. And yeah, doing something new is doing something new. And it's going to be weird at first and probably uncomfortable and feel like like when you're lifting weights, you're going to tear some muscles and it's going to ache a little bit. But keep doing that and find the energy, find the joy in that high energy and keep it up there, because your business is going to need it and require it. And again, it's not stressful. This is that happy energy. Like when you go to a concert or an event and there's just so much energy and people are happy and you don't feel exhausted, do you? No, you're energized. You could do that forever. Favorite band's up there playing and you're jumping around and enjoying the music and really getting into the moment. Well, your business kind of needs to be a rock concert, right? You need to have that joy and energy when you walk into a building, when you walk into that boardroom, when you walk into a meeting. Got to have that energy up there. And I'm not saying the aggressive, wrestler yelling, I'm going to get the belt back kind of stuff. I'm talking about just having that energy up so that the little things don't burden you and that you're at that high level of success. If your calendar is full, but your cup is empty, well, you're growing the wrong way. Effective work, not busy work, is what's going to scale up your business. Again, impact. Focus more on impact. Part 2, 5 scaling secrets to grow without burnout. First of all, systematize the repetitive. Remember, like I said, the emails and the communication and the contact, have that in a system, have that broken down into different things. And, it's not many people. I remember when I was sharing this with a mentee in the business, they're like, well, if I send out 100 emails, that 100 people are going to want to work with me. And I'm like, whoa, dial back. You send out 100 emails, we're going to start fractioning this thing out that so many people are going to not read it. So many people will read it. So many people will respond out of sincerity and just being kind. And then others will actually engage. It's the engagement that you have to scale and understand is going to be the repercussions or the result of that action. So just because you send 100 things out doesn't mean 100 people are all of a sudden going to work with you and you need to have anxiety about having room on your calendar. Certainly not the case. But through repetition, through that systemization of trickling those 100 emails out at different periods, and if they're also set in your system and process to go at different times, like you meet a client last Monday, then you meet a client on Thursday, then you meet a client on Friday, well, then this week you're sending out those. If you sent out follow-up emails, which started the system after your meeting or what you should have been doing, then this week or next week, you're going to send out 3 different emails. So you may get a call on Tuesday from the 3rd email that was sent because they're more proactive. You may get a call next month or a contact from the 1st email that had to get sent out 5 times. So see how it kind of speckles around a little bit. Your calendar is going to find opportunities for those engagements, but it's not all going to happen at once. So don't, again, this young fella really got overwhelmed and was like, well, let me get prepared, because if 100 people are going to want to work with me, then I'm like, you don't just get 1 or 2 things together, you'll be fine. So create those standard operating procedures for anything that you do more than twice. Again, like I said, the email system and setup for the drip campaign, CRMs, there's so many of them out there. And quite frankly, there's some that you can actually create on your own. Takes a little bit more time, somewhat consuming. Certain restrictions can apply as far as what platform you're using to send. So sometimes the best option is just pay that monthly fee, select a CRM that's already in business, and work from that, especially if they're catered to your specific business. So setting up Loom, notations, ClickUp, Google Docs, something like that that would create that conversation, that touch point, if you will, to remind them of who you are, what you do, and how you can help them. Many people were surprised that I reached out to them kind of immediately after a transaction because they didn't have that experience either previous or from friends of theirs that said, oh, well, the agent sold the house and that was the last we saw him. I continued to touch with them, even if it was a tough sale, because I realized it was the moment and a big decision for them, and the home may or may not have had some issues, and so it was just complicated. But that didn't mean the relationship going forward would have to be complicated. And I'll tell you, those were some of my best customers and clients were following up with them and then following up on an anniversary, following up a year later to say, hope things are going well still and that you've made the place a home. And even that, just some engagement of a conversation, a quick 5-10 minute conversation to find out everything is well. Great. Keep them on the list. In fact, maybe add them to a campaign if there's something that they mention. Like, yeah, we haven't made any improvements. We're still working on the budget, but look forward to it. Well, I certainly put them on a campaign of some do-it-yourself things to make your home better or to improve it in its use, as well as how to make it more energy efficient at the time. And I would send that, I believe it was once a quarter that publication went out. Simple email with a little bit of script, and some handy ideas. Again, that was automation, but through those conversations, I was able to add you to several of those touch points. And again, that was hugely beneficial for scaling up. Now, did it happen overnight? No, but over a series of about 1 to 3 years of implementing that system, yeah, the phone pretty much rang. The business pretty much came to you. And I guess I should probably touch on this as well. When you're talking about scaling, is don't get to the point where your automation is so finely tuned and set up that you feel you can step away. Not that I stepped away, just saying I've seen other people when I shared with them this option that they went and set it up and said, you know what, you're right, I do have more free time and took advantage of the free time. Yes, there's free time within this system, but don't take weeks on end and come back necessarily and think your system is still in place because again, it's a perpetual thing and there's going to be that follow-up. Delegate to multiply. Focus a little bit on your genius zone here. What are you truly good at? And outsource your shoulds. If you should do something versus you need to do something, your shoulds, someone else can do. Your needs, well, that's you. That's within your genius zone. When building teams and creating a staff, if you will, hire for energy, not just skill. Who energizes your vision when you talk to them and let them know what it is you're doing and how you're building something and be honest too, it may be rough at the beginning, but it's going to scale up. And are they prepared for that scaling up? Are they ready for your business to go to that next level? Because remember, as I said before, when you have this elevated energy and you've built this muscle memory of showing up and always being kind of on fire in a good way, in a happy way, well, you're going to want your team to be that way too. Because quite frankly, if you're coming into the room and you're on fire for the day and your team is not, and it's a proverbial Monday, if you will, well, your team is going to be like kindling and you're going to set them ablaze with the fiery energy that you have. I hope that paints a picture of goodness to remind you that fire and fire work together. Fire and kindling do not work together. So you want to mirror that energy with those that you're designating and delegating. So when you're coming in with the fire and you say, hey, great new client coming online, we're going to do this, this, and this. And they're like, yes, they're on fire too, because they can't wait. I mean, and I've always shared this as well, is even though it's not direct, it still impacts the business. So those that you've designated and delegate and put on your team, They should have the same energy, even though it doesn't scale up their paycheck per se or their compensation level in a percentage. It's good for the company. And quite frankly, when the company is doing well, you're like me, you share. And those in the company are going to do well as well. Build that client experience engine. Remember how I mentioned those drip emails? Well, have that automated onboarding with feedback and check-ins. That consistency, that equals scale, not chaos. And if you have that system set up and it's on that calendar, you know, say within 2 quarters of the year that they've received, say, 8 emails on a particular campaign. Maybe it's that new client system that you have with those touch points. You need to know and understand a little bit of your system because they will eventually engage. I forget what the statistics are now. They keep constantly changing. But at the time, it was roughly between 8 and 12 touch points, probably even closer to 15 now, before someone actually engages with a conversation, follow-up, feedback, or response. So don't, if you're looking for a little bit of that scale, don't necessarily dial it back to say, hey, I don't want to bother them. But I think especially with new client, you're going to be almost on a week to biweekly basis. If you're just following up, maybe a monthly basis, and certainly client retention at least on a quarter basis. And that's because they've already received a boatload of information from you. You're just reminding them on a quarterly basis who you are and what you do. And again, that could be a simple blog, a post about what your company is doing on the peripheral. Say there was a volunteer event and you got snapshots capturing the moment, and you put a little statement together about what you did and why you do it. Even something like that quarterly reminds your client and customer past that this is what you continue to still do. This is how you're doing, occupying your free time. And it might even spark some engagement from them to say, oh, wow, I didn't know you did that. I support that as well and would love to join you and the crew next time. And that's even a better win, is it not? Because now your client is technically, well, I don't want to say working for you, but they're participating with you. And maybe at the end of the day, because I really had trouble being a dollars and cents person, I was more of an energy person, that a client or customer coming to contribute in that manner, well, that honestly was better than dollars, because now they're going to say to their friends and family how they spent the weekend was with their realtor. And they're like, you're looking for another house? No, I was volunteering for something. Oh, wow. They're engaged in, and I will say for my personal, was Habitat for Humanity. Oh, well, that's a great cause. Well, I would help. I would like to support them as well. Well, even somebody who hasn't had that transaction with me and now they support the next event that we do, then they see that we're actually, kind of hands-on. Well, that sparks business too. And that's another way to scale up, is creating a little bit of that involvement opportunity. Because, I mean, think about it. How many times have you just in general maybe worked with someone and thought, man, this is really great people. If they had a business, I'd work for them tomorrow. Well, think of it along those lines, that you kind of get to see how someone operates and on the peace side rather than the business side. And that's always created engagement, especially for me. And I'm sure it is with you, because I'd rather see the person than the business. The business it is what it is. But the person, that explains a lot more about the business as well. And as I mentioned before, in step number 4 is protect energy like revenue. Your schedule is your business partner. Block and set up that recharge time like client time. And I know you're going to be there. I was there several times, so I know you're going to be there. And you probably have already been there, so now you're going to laugh with me. It's the end of the week, you're getting ready to go on vacation, or you're taking that block time off. and you've got one more appointment. One more appointment, you just slid into the calendar because it was like, well, I better talk to him before I leave because I'm going to be gone for a period of time and I should at least make contact in order to set things up. Sometimes they went well, but most of the time, because I wasn't, my energy was down. I needed to go recharge for the week. I needed to, in my case, go sit on the beach and read a book and just decompress for a week. I played a little golf too, by the way, but it, I was I was on schedule to decompress. And I went and set up just one more. I was like, well, it's the day before, not leaving until tomorrow. I can certainly meet with someone, set up some parameters, get things started. So when I get back, there's one in the a coin in the jar, if you will, or whatever image you can drum up. And because I won't say it always happened, but I just knew, I just knew. I didn't show up at that last one, the one I was just trying to squeeze in right before I left. I just did not show up with the energy. My RPMs were a little bit lower. I I just wasn't there. And it was about trying to strive again too hard physically and not just say, hey, you know what? Respectfully, I'm getting ready to go out. That's going to be too late in the day. Can we reschedule a week from now? And do that with confidence in any business. Do that with confidence to know that they are respecting your downtime, your recharge time, and quite frankly, they're going to get 150% of you when you come back because you're going to be ready for that new business. And I would kind of explain that to them a little bit was that, it's been a long couple of weeks. I've really been kind of hammering out the business. And, if we can meet the following week, not only will things be set up, will not only us be more prepared for our meeting, but you will get the best of me at that moment. And I think kind of being a little human and sharing with them that you were kind of burned down in a nice way, and that you wanted to ensure they were getting your best and not just a transaction. I think putting it at that human level certainly changed the dynamics and it made for better. But I got to be honest, there was a couple of times I did squeeze that. And sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't. So that's why I want to share with you to ensure that just don't do it. Just do yourself a favor and don't do it. Because then, whether that last meeting, again, the one you squeezed in, not the one that was scheduled for 2 weeks prior to, and you said, you know what, I can meet with you at 4. I'm going on vacation tomorrow. That's great. I'm talking about the one at 6 that like 3 days prior was trying to squeeze in the calendar. That's the one I'm talking about. Let me be clear. The 4 o'clock, I was ready, man. I was rock that to the park. The 6 o'clock was the one that was hit or miss. And then again, cherish. You got to respect your time. You also have to respect your energies. The fact that at 6, I didn't quite show up, and I may or may not have gotten that transaction, but because it was sort of the last thing that was on the edge, if you will, I did spend that week. I was supposed to be relaxing, thinking about how to strategize for that one because I I was unclear, quite frankly. Not that I was unsure. I just was unclear because again, my energy wasn't up, I wasn't focused, I wasn't absorbing, I wasn't solid. All of this stuff set. I kind of walked away from the meeting going, that didn't go well. Gosh, they really have a chance to run away. Well, they might still be there because we did agree on this, this, and this. That's no way to go downtime is spending time thinking about whether your business is still going to be there, specifically on one client that, like I said, 3 days prior, you kind of squeezed into the calendar. Now, if your energy is up so high that you can slam dunk that 6 p.m., more power to you. I thought that until after the meeting and then realized this was a bad idea. I should have gone home, should have gotten ready to pack, should have got a good night's rest in order to go enjoy some downtime and truly unplug from my business. And over the series of years that I was in that business and had that routine of about 3, 4 times a year, taking that break, trust me, I got a lot of schooling. So I'm not only speaking from the heart, but I'm speaking from experience. You you really just don't want to do that. And I found again through building this system, it was okay. I could take a break. They were still new client getting touched through that next week. So it was almost like I was there anyway. And we were kind of waiting on things to get put together based on them anyhow, just based on the suggestions. So just make sure you calendar things out and keep your energy. And that's, like I said, that was a quarterly thing. You even on a daily, right? Don't, somebody calls you at lunchtime and says, hey, can we meet at 6? Respect the fact you need that downtime to get recouped for the next day. And unless if you're powered up to work until 8 and your energy is up at that level and that's your window, great, so be it. But if your energy level is about exhausted at that fourth or fifth hour of the day like that, then don't try to squeeze one more thing in. Just be honest and say, it's been a really busy day. I'd like to give you 150% of my time and energy. So can we meet tomorrow or later on in the week? Honestly, they will respect that. They will appreciate it. They will enjoy it. That next meeting will be a much better experience for both of you, and it will lead to a successful client. Don't stress yourself out. Again, scale up with this purpose, not just trying to get more. So block time, like client time, and recharge. Number 5 is track your progress, not your busyness. Again, your shoulds, somebody else should be doing that. Tracking your progress is what are the things that you're doing that are scaling up your business, meeting with clients, having transactions, and obtaining more clients. Those are pretty much the 3 things you're going to be doing. And you should be doing them systematically, repetitiously in any business that you're in. Start off by using weekly metrics, revenue, referrals, also some time in genius mode. Are you spending too much time trying to invent your business? How much time are you spending with the client impact? Remember the volunteer thing? All of this stuff has to be balanced out. And if you're spending a lot of time volunteering and getting that client retention, I can tell you one thing else that I learned was when they start to see you in that mode, there is a compassion. They do appreciate that you're doing something to help, well, humanity, if you will, such as I was with Habitat. But when there was a certain point where I was doing a lot, it was a project that they were doing, and there was kind of a gap, I want to say in scheduling maybe, where the volunteers were shifting, that are the regular solid volunteers that show up daily, a little bit like Peace Corps that show up on the Habitat for Humanity building staff. And there was some gaps, I guess, in their schedule, and the director asked me to kind of fill in some time. And it was like, hey, and I was like, yeah, things are kind of slow. It's a little weird. Sure, I can do that. And I invited people to join me. But, when your calendar says you're doing this, well, I was almost becoming a missionary for Habitat and not necessarily, a transactional professional. So you want to be careful to not put too much time. And that's why I say track progress. Make sure that you're blocking those times as well, and you're breaking up those blocks so that it's not all working on revenue. It's not all building referrals. It's not spending a whole bunch of genius time trying to build the business, because everything else needs your attention as well. And especially client impact. Allow them to see you in another light, but also allow them to see you in the light, quite frankly, you need to be seen in, which is transactional. And that can be something as simple as carrying a sign around in your car. That could be something as simple as just, hey, I'm going to be a little late. I know I have a closing at the building and we're going to settle. And once that gets taken care of, then I can come see you. And when people hear busy people, they like to work with busy people, but just don't be too busy. But remember, block up your time that each one of these things are being taken care of. See, it's the progress. That's what's profitable. Part three, mind shifts of scalable leaders. You really want to go from I have to do it all to I only do what moves the vision. Remember, designate and delegate. Your needs, your need to, tough to say this one here, your need to is anything towards your vision. You should, somebody else can do that. You should follow up with a client. You should have some client retention system. You should set up that next voluntary event. You should schedule things on your calendar and block out time. Let somebody else do that and allow yourself to do only what moves the vision, scales the business. And then there's a little bit of something to be said. I remember my assistant started filling out my calendar. I gave him this authority. And I said, Tabby, I said, just, you've known me for a while now. Fill out this calendar, how I perform and what I do. You've seen my routine. And that way I I argued more with her about my calendar and things being scheduled, and we did figure it out. It was actually pretty awesome. But the I guess what I'm sharing with you is that I didn't get mad at myself for scheduling some downtime at 1 p.m. I could say, Tabby put me down for genius time at 1. I'm not really happy about that. But she also understood where my groove was and knew that after lunch was kind of like a little bit of a spike in my day, if you will, a little bit of break. And that was usually eating lunch and then jumping right into genius time to give myself some bonus um, time to really scale things out, if you will. So she had good intentions, but by her setting it, I knew I couldn't move it, if that makes sense. So allowing someone else to sort of create your schedule blocks, now it's not something that you put in place, someone else did. And I found, and I'll share this with you, is that I was less likely to move genius time from 1 to 5 because to accommodate something, I was like, no, that was put there by somebody else. I don't have the authority to move it. And so it was a little bit of, well, kind of playing that mental gymnastics game that allowed me to stay more focused on the vision because I couldn't argue with the calendar. It was already in place. And they knew, well, after several years of working together, when was the best time to meet with a client? When was a not so good time to meet with a client? When I usually scheduled closings at a specific time. And if closing was in the afternoon, well, then you want to block some other time around that because, well, afternoon closings aren't the best. The mornings, always the best. You want to go from growth equals grind to the simplicity equals scale. Remember, by designating and delegating really simplified things. I couldn't argue with the schedule. I just followed it step by step. And knowing that when I look at my agenda for the day and see that I had genius time set up, well, I've kind of focused on that. I knew, hey, I didn't have to worry about this at 9. I could worry about it at 1 because that's the time to be concerned about something. Honestly, having that freedom to be able to sort of anticipate something like that happening allows you to not worry about it until you have to worry about it. Does that make sense? There's a certain freedom in setting that up and having that simplicity. You want to go and again, this was sort of that 6 p.m. example I mentioned earlier. Saying yes to every opportunity, you want to get away from that and start saying yes to alignment only. Again, when you're focused on your vision, you're always tuned at that certain RPM where your vision is paramount. and it's top of mind for you. So unless something aligns with you in the business and again feels right, you'll learn to start saying no to that 6 p.m. appointment. Yeah, is there the odd of losing that business? Certainly. But when you're chasing it, it certainly is not coming to you. You're still in motion. But if you're still and you say yes to alignment only, well, then you're going to start seeing the magnetism. And, people like to work with busy people. They understand, hey, if you're not available at 6, but you can be 150% available in a week, because that's the next opportunity on your busy calendar. Again, if you don't want to mention you're going to be on vacation, that's certainly up to you. I found it as more of a plus to say, hey, I got to go recharge the batteries. It's been a couple of months and it's my time to decompress. So I'm really sorry I'm going to be unplugged from the business, but I can guarantee you this is that I will be back. You will be my first client upon being back, and you will get 150% of my energy. Now, which version of me would you like more? Well, guess who I saw in a week? That's right. So they will understand that mutual respect. And if maybe I better throw this in here too, is if you're so strong, and again, it's only because you lost your vision, and we're all growing in this aspect. So I will throw this in here, is if you truly feel like that's your business, then if you have a team that can accommodate while you're gone in your particular business, certainly say, hey, let me have one of my sales associates connect with you next week. If you can delegate like that, absolutely. Don't lose the business. But if you don't have that delegation ability and you're pretty much the sole sales force and marketing force and stuff like that, then yeah, don't do that. But if somebody said, look, we this thing's got to be in motion next week, just can't wait a week, I would respond by saying, I understand the time scale and urgency, and if I truly couldn't talk them out of it and get another week from them, then I would say, you know what, I know who is available, and I would find someone else in my office. Again, if you have a sales force, so be it. If you have a independent sales team, you might go to that person and say, hey, Charlie, um, I got somebody that needs to do something next week and I'm going to be out of town. I tell you what, if I can give you their information, you can set this up, you can be on scale. Maybe a percentage comes to me or whatever you can negotiate. Maybe it's a good steak dinner. I don't know. But you could at least get something for the effort of acquiring this client. And again, that's a personal thing, but I just wanted to share with it that not all is lost. In fact, I found that it was really good discipline that week I was going to decompress and recharge. I, I actually did hand out a couple of referrals. But that's what also the some of my genius time was like, I need to start designating specific people that I already have a whole agreement with that I can whether I'm on vacation or not, if it's a time schedule crunch thing, I can automatically reach out to them and say, hey, are you available on Friday at 6 p.m.? Well, sure, of course I am. Great. Here's somebody for you. And by the way, same agreement that just kept going forever. So it was a way to still generate income for my part of the business while I was giving business to someone else. And again, if I couldn't convince them, the client at that time that we just couldn't wait a week, well, you know what? I wouldn't, it's just not a good fit, and don't force it. Appreciate it, I guess is more what I found. And sometimes they were a better client for someone else that could handle maybe some of the nuances of the energy that they brought to the table or just what they were doing. I always found that things at the end of the day worked out if I wasn't chasing them. And I guess that's what I'm trying to share with you is make sure that you're staying in alignment and alignment only and not sacrificing your time and your energy. Because see, clarity around your role and understanding kind of staying in your lane, as they say, this helped create that visionary and it really avoided burnout. And it allowed me to build that brand as well as to mentor with people and share with them this experience that I learned and these skills that I've built. And something that honestly, I think I passed on to several people. So let's recap. Scaling's about leverage, not load. Systematize, delegate, protect your energy, and also track what matters. The most successful entrepreneurs aren't the busiest. They're the most focused. So I bring to you this call to action is download. Scale without burnout builder worksheet in the notes. Audit your current workload and reclaim the energy draining tasks this week. Share your scaling win at Ask Adam Live with hashtag Scale Smart with Adam. Remember, you're not just building a business, you're building a lifestyle. Scale it like your peace depends on it, because it does. Now let's go out and make it a great day.